Chosen one. The silence of heaven is breaking. You can feel it in your bones, the trembling in your spirit, the sudden restlessness in your heart. Something divine is stirring. You have carried questions for years, wondering why you see deeper, feel stronger, and sense storms before they arrive. That was never coincidence. God has watched in quiet patience, but now the time of concealment is ending. The truth that was once hidden must be revealed. Every shaking you have endured was part of this unveiling. The long nights, the misunderstood seasons, the times when it seemed like heaven had gone quiet, none of them were wasted. You were being separated, refined, and trained to hear the voice that others ignore. You were chosen to carry understanding that cannot be given to everyone. That is why God can no longer hide this from you. The veil is tearing. The revelation is coming through. For too long, the world has tried to define you by what it sees, but heaven defines you by what was written before you were born. You have always been different because you were designed for a divine purpose. The rejection you faced was not punishment, it was redirection. The isolation you endured was not abandonment, it was initiation. The very things that broke you are now birthing your awakening. God has watched as you kept walking through confusion and still chose faith. You questioned, but you didn't quit. You cried, but you kept believing. You felt forgotten, but you refused to let go. Those moments became the proof that you were never just another soul on the earth. You are part of a sacred plan that must now come to light. It is revealed in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 8, verse 17. For nothing is hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. This is the moment when hidden truth begins to breathe. The same God who spoke galaxies into being is now speaking illumination into your darkness. Every unanswered question, every secret pain, every silent prayer, he is unveiling the meaning behind them. What once confused you will now make sense. What once hurt you will soon heal you. Chosen one, you are standing on the edge of revelation. This is not another random day. This is the day heaven decides that silence has lasted long enough. You are not being awakened for your comfort, but for your calling. The world around you is shifting because heaven has chosen to reveal through you what it can no longer hide. You will begin to notice signs, confirmations, divine interruptions, each one echoing the same truth. It's time you know everything. Listen, your discernment is not madness, it's maturity. You are not losing your mind. You are finding your purpose. When others run from truth, you will run toward it. When others fear the unknown, you will recognize it as revelation. God has preserved you for this very moment because what He is about to show you will not only free you, it will awaken others through you. So stand still. Let the light reach you. Do not resist what is being uncovered. When God reveals, He restores. When He exposes, He heals. The truth may confront you, but it will never crush you. You will rise from this season with clarity in your eyes and fire in your voice. The days of confusion are over. The days of revelation are here. Before this message ends, seal it with a prophetic act. Comment 777 below. Let it be your declaration that you are ready for divine revelation, that you receive the truth heaven has been waiting to show you. Like this message, share it, and subscribe to stay connected with what God is unveiling next. You are not following a trend. You are responding to a divine summons. The veil is torn. The truth is loose. And heaven will not take it back. Step into it. Chosen one. The hidden things are being revealed, and this time you will see everything clearly. The light that once seemed distant now burns inside you. Every unanswered question becomes a key, unlocking deeper vision. You will notice divine patterns everywhere, numbers, timing, faces, dreams, all aligning to confirm that heaven has shifted your story from mystery to manifestation. This is not coincidence. This is your calling revealed. You are no longer walking blind. The fog that covered your destiny is lifting, and clarity is becoming your new atmosphere. The truth you carry will disturb darkness and awaken sleeping hearts around you. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to ignite transformation wherever your feet touch. Let this revelation anchor your soul. From this moment forward, walk as one who knows, speak with authority, pray with fire, and move with peace. God has trusted you with secrets once hidden. Guard them well, live them boldly, and remember, you are chosen to reveal what heaven can no longer hide. You have always wondered why you could never blend in, why certain people seemed uneasy around your presence, why you could feel emotions and energies others dismissed as imagination. That sensitivity was not a flaw, it was your evidence. The fingerprint of divine separation was placed upon you long before your first breath. You were born with spiritual antennae tuned to higher frequencies, and because of that, the noise of the world never fit you. This separation was not cruelty, it was strategy. Heaven sets apart before it sends forth. While others were rushing toward applause, you were led into silence. While others celebrated convenience, you were trained through endurance. God was not ignoring you. He was incubating you. The seasons when you felt invisible were actually sacred, because the unseen preparation of the chosen is always more intense than the public recognition that follows. From childhood, you noticed the pattern. People came close, then pulled away. Doors opened, then slammed without warning. You blamed yourself, thinking you were too much, too strange, too intense. But the truth is, the oil on your life provokes reaction. The same light that guides those meant to walk with you also exposes those who cannot. Some people were never rejecting you, they were retreating from the light within you. When heaven marks someone, the atmosphere around them changes. Even before you understood your own calling, others could sense the weight of it. You've been misunderstood because divine fingerprints rarely match human expectations. You were designed to disturb comfort zones, to shift the spiritual climate just by standing there. And because of that, your journey could never look ordinary. Your separation is sacred. It is not a punishment for being different. It is evidence that you carry what cannot be mixed with the crowd. You were not chosen to copy trends, you were chosen to break patterns. Every isolation, every misunderstood conversation, every friendship that faded without explanation was a pruning to protect your purity of purpose. The anointing on your life requires space, silence, and solitude so it can grow without contamination. You felt moments of envy, wondering why others move faster while you are stuck waiting. But you are not delayed, you are being developed. What takes others a year might take you a decade, because God builds deep foundations in those who will carry eternal assignments. The weight of glory demands patience, and patience often feels like loneliness. There is beauty in the hidden years. They forge strength invisible to the world. You learned endurance when nobody was clapping. You learned to hear God's whisper when nobody was listening. You learned to believe without proof. These are the credentials of the chosen, trained in obscurity, trusted in revelation. When God separates, He doesn't explain, because explanation ruins obedience. As found in the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 16. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? This is the secret of your separation. You are distinguished by divine presence. It is not your talent that sets you apart, but the fragrance of the one who walks with you. You were set apart to carry evidence that God is real, to reveal His nearness in a world numbed by imitation. The time of questioning is ending. God is about to show you why you could never settle for less. Those restless feelings, the sense that you were made for something greater, they were holy reminders of your true identity. Deep down, your spirit remembers what your flesh has forgotten, that you were formed for divine purpose. In the coming days, you will understand why you had to be separated. The lessons you learned in silence will become language for those still trapped in noise. The isolation that once broke you will become the testimony that builds others. Do not despise your difference anymore. What made you stand apart will soon make you stand out. Stay humble, stay listening, stay separate in spirit even when surrounded by the crowd. Your separation was never about losing connection. It was about gaining clarity. Heaven could not allow you to blend in because your voice was never meant to echo. It was meant to originate. Let the world misunderstand you if it must. Heaven understands the blueprint. You have been set apart, not to live above others, but to walk before them as a living sign that purpose is greater than popularity. You are the evidence that divine separation always precedes divine revelation. Your difference is your divine signature. What once isolated you will soon identify you as chosen. Every silence, every scar now speaks of preparation for revelation. Walk forward with quiet confidence. The same God who set you apart will send you forth. Your separation was never loss. It was alignment with heaven's design. There were seasons when silence screamed louder than words. You prayed and nothing moved. You reached out, and no one reached back. Everything familiar vanished, and it felt like God Himself had withdrawn His hand. Yet that wilderness was not punishment, it was the meeting place of revelation. Heaven hides its deepest truths in dry places because only the thirsty will seek until they find. The wilderness is where God rewrites identities. On it strips away the noise of applause, the comfort of routine, the dependence on others' validation. In that loneliness, your spirit becomes uncluttered. What once felt like loss becomes the doorway to clarity. Every unanswered prayer, every delayed dream, every closed door was a teacher preparing you to hear the still small voice that guides the chosen. You see, wilderness seasons do not destroy purpose, they define it. You were not forgotten there. You were being formed. Every step through the desert built endurance. Every tear watered the seed of future glory. It was in the silence that you learned to discern whispers, and in the lack that you discovered abundance. People may have looked at your stillness and assumed failure, but heaven saw training. God was shaping your inner life until your roots were deep enough to hold the weight of revelation. You were being equipped to speak from scars, not theories. That is why nothing worked until you were broken open. Only the broken vessel can pour out living water. When everything fell apart, you didn't realize heaven was rearranging your foundation. There are lessons only pain can teach. There are callings only wilderness can awaken. You learned how to depend on unseen strength, how to navigate darkness without losing sight of light. And now, you understand that solitude was never the absence of God, it was His most personal classroom, as found in the book of Hosea, chapter 2, verse 14. Therefore, I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. This verse reveals the mystery of your wilderness. It was never exile. It was invitation. God led you there not to punish you, but to speak with you without interruption. He separated you from noise so that His words could take root. You were not lost. You were being located in destiny. Many people want revelation but reject isolation. They crave wisdom but despise waiting. Yet the chosen understand that the silence of God is not his absence, it is his artistry. He speaks in stillness so that when the noise returns, your spirit will remain anchored in peace. The wilderness is where the chosen learn to hear the rhythm of heaven. There was a time when you begged for release, but now you realize that place made you unshakable. You walked through nights of confusion and found that your tears built altars. You carried emptiness but discovered it became space for glory to dwell. Everything that seemed lost was actually transformed into strength. You must understand this, your wilderness was not wasted. Every quiet morning when you prayed with no answer, heaven recorded it. Every moment you chose faith instead of bitterness, heaven celebrated it. You were not abandoned, you were anointed in secret. The pain that silenced others produced power within you. Now that same silence is about to break open into sound. The voice you trained to hear in the dark will soon echo through the light. What was whispered to you in solitude will become the message that awakens nations. You were refined privately so you could speak publicly with authority that cannot be faked. Before this moment ends, write these words below. Still in faith, do not type them casually. Type them as a declaration that even after the wilderness, your heart still believes. It means, I did not lose hope in the silence. I still trust that God's voice is near. Even when unseen, I am still standing, still listening, still in faith. When you comment these words, it becomes a testimony that the wilderness did not consume you. It prepared you. Now breathe. The wilderness did not break you, it baptized you. You are stepping out different, lighter, wiser, radiant with truth that can only be born in hidden places. Soon, what you learned in silence will become the sound of awakening for many still wandering in their deserts. When you write still in faith, you are not repeating words, you are releasing a vibration into the spirit realm. Those 3 words announce that your hope survived the silence, and your belief is stronger than your wounds. Still in faith means your posture never changed even when your circumstances did. It is the sound of endurance, the anthem of those who refuse to bow to despair when everything inside them screamed to quit. And when heaven reads your declaration still in faith, it recognizes persistence. It sees one who trusted through shadows and is now ready for revelation. Those words open doors, marking you as one who endured and overcame. There was a time when light and darkness both spoke your name. 2 forces wrestled over your future, and neither side intended to let go easily. The confusion you felt was not simply emotional, it was spiritual. The enemy saw glimpses of your potential long before you did, and he tried to counterfeit it to offer an imitation of destiny wrapped in temptation. That is how darkness always operates. It imitates light until discernment matures. You have encountered moments that seemed good, but deep inside, they lacked peace. Opportunities appeared promising but demanded pieces of your integrity. Certain relationships looked holy but carried hidden chains. These were not coincidences, they were crafted distractions. The enemy rarely comes with horns and fire, he comes disguised as alignment. He comes as what you think you need. His strategy is not destruction through obvious evil, but deception through subtle comfort. If the enemy cannot stop your calling, he will try to distort your clarity. He knows you carry influence, so he attempts to make you doubt your own vision. He whispers, "Did God really say that?" Not because he wants to know the truth, but because he fears the moment you stand firm in it. The most dangerous believer to darkness is the one who no longer negotiates obedience. The counterfeit light glows beautifully for a moment. It gives attention, success, quick satisfaction, but it always demands more than it gives. It feeds the ego while starving the soul. You may have followed such lights before and found yourself drained afterward, questioning why peace left you so quickly. That was your spirit recognizing the imitation. True light brings rest. False light brings exhaustion. You were born with the ability to recognize the difference, but that ability grows through testing. Every false promise you've encountered became a lesson in discernment. Every time you said no to what looked good but felt wrong, heaven recorded it as victory. Each time you walked away from what glittered but didn't glow, you proved that your spirit is learning to see beyond appearances. The counterfeit always comes before the authentic. In the natural world, counterfeits exist only because the real thing is valuable. The same is true spiritually. You faced false friendships before genuine covenant ones because the enemy tried to make you settle early. You encountered deceptive paths before divine purpose because the enemy wanted you weary before arrival. But you didn't quit, you kept searching for truth. That persistence disarms darkness. Paul once warned in his second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 14, "And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light." This scripture exposes what you have lived through. The enemy cannot create, he can only imitate. He mimics light because he fears the real one shining through you. He tries to distract the chosen with counterfeit versions of what they already carry. He hopes you'll chase reflections instead of realizing that you are the lamp. Now you understand why temptation often looked like opportunity. Why certain people entered your life with flattery but left with fragments of your peace. Why certain doors opened easily yet led into confusion. Darkness studied your desires and mirrored them back to you, hoping to lure you from the original design. But grace intervened. Every detour became direction. Every deception became discernment. You have survived manipulation that could have ended you. You have walked through illusions and emerged with sharper vision. That clarity is your new armor. You no longer need constant confirmation because truth now lives within you. The enemy's whispers sound smaller, weaker, distant because light recognized cannot be deceived again. The counterfeit cannot coexist with revelation. Once truth enters, imitation loses power. You are learning to pause before deciding, to sense before seeing, to test every spirit that approaches you. That is not suspicion, it is wisdom. Discernment is not fear, it is focus, and focus is how the chosen protect their oil. In this next chapter of your journey, deception will still try to speak, but you will recognize its accent. You will feel the dissonance instantly, and your spirit will say, "Not this time." Every past mistake that once embarrassed you has now become a weapon against confusion. The light of truth within you will expose lies without effort. What once fooled you can no longer reach you. The counterfeit light burns out quickly, but the divine flame within you only grows brighter. You are walking proof that revelation cannot be undone. You are not bitter from betrayal. You are wiser from it. You are not broken by deception. You are defined by truth. The days ahead will demand this level of clarity. The enemy will continue to disguise distraction as destiny. But you are no longer vulnerable. You carry the lamp that exposes every imitation. You don't need to fear the false when you have learned to recognize the true. You are light born from light, and darkness has no argument against authenticity. You may not realize it yet, but heaven has been preparing you to awaken others. You've walked through storms, carried silence, and survived deception all so you could speak with compassion, not judgment. What you carry now is not theory. It is fire tested by experience. And this fire is meant to spread, not to consume. but to light the way for those still lost in the dark. There comes a moment when revelation matures into responsibility. The truth that once healed you now calls you to become a vessel for healing others. Every scar has become a sentence. Every tear has become ink for the message written upon your life. You have become living scripture proof that God still speaks through human stories. But understand, this light is never meant to stay hidden. What God has placed inside you is not a private treasure, but a shared flame. Just as a candle loses nothing by lighting another, your story gains strength every time it ignites hope in someone else. The world is full of souls searching for the same comfort you once needed, and through your obedience, they will find it. As recorded in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 15. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. You are that lampstand now. Your life gives light not because you are perfect, but because you are transparent. People see God's fingerprints in your resilience, His mercy in your voice, and His patience in your journey. This light is sacred. It draws those still walking through their own midnight. That is why these words you hear, the messages that find you when you need them most, exist to remind the chosen of their calling. Every video, every moment of reflection is another flame in the dark. And when you share it, you become part of that chain of light stretching across nations. If these messages have ever found you in a low moment, if they have helped you breathe again when life felt too heavy, consider it a quiet invitation. A lamp cannot shine without oil, and every gesture of kindness, every share of this message, every like you leave behind, becomes that oil. Each act whispers, let this flame keep burning. When you subscribe, imagine it not as pressing a button, but as planting a seed in sacred soil so that every new revelation finds its way back to your heart at the right time. You become part of a garden of souls who grow together in divine rhythm. And if your heart ever feels stirred to donate, think of it as releasing a drop of oil into a great lantern that never goes out. It's not a requirement, it's worship in motion. You are not paying for words. You are fueling the light that helps another soul see the road again. Every offering, no matter how small, is a spark that keeps this sanctuary of truth alive. Like to keep the flame visible, share so another wandering heart may find its way home. Subscribe to walk with us as the next revelation unfolds. And if you ever feel led to donate, do it as you would place a candle before an altar, not out of duty, but out of love. Your kindness becomes the unseen oil that keeps the light from fading. You may never know whose midnight your gift will brighten, but heaven will. Somewhere, someone will see again because of your light. The flame burns brighter because of you, and somewhere, because of your quiet generosity, another chosen one will whisper in gratitude, I found my way. Every light needs tending, and even the brightest flame flickers when left alone. Yet when another soul breathes upon it, it steadies again. That is how heaven designed community, not as noise, but as shared warmth. Each of us carries a spark that keeps another from fading. Your presence here is not small. Every time your eyes meet these words, you become part of a living story God is still writing. The unseen connection between your heart and these messages is divine choreography, souls aligning, stories intertwining, purpose awakening in silence. When you extend kindness, when you choose to nurture light instead of fear, you create ripples that touch places you'll never see. The smallest act of generosity becomes a bridge across distance, carrying hope into homes, screens, and hearts you may never meet but are meant to reach. So let this be your quiet prayer tonight. May my light never burn for me alone. For when you give love, share light, or plant seeds of faith, heaven multiplies them into fields of awakening. That is how chosen ones move, not through noise, but through light that refuses to die. And as the night settles, your flame keeps rising, gentle, steady, unafraid. You are proof that even in darkness, light remembers its origin and always finds a reason to shine again. There are moments in life when everything seems still, yet something divine moves beneath the surface. You can feel it now, a quiet anticipation, a pulse in your chest that says something unseen is unfolding. Heaven has opened another chapter, and you stand in the middle of it, aware that your journey has not been random. You are walking inside prophecy, fulfilling promises whispered before time began. This is what it means to live under covenant. A covenant is not just a promise, it is a sacred contract sealed by divine intent. Before you knew God's name, He had already written yours into His plan. Every delay, every detour, every heartbreak, none of them broke that covenant. They refined it. You have been walking through corridors of divine timing, where every door opens only when your spirit is mature enough to handle what waits beyond it. Many of the battles you fought weren't to destroy you. They were to test your faithfulness to the covenant. Heaven never questions God's love for you, it questions your readiness to carry what you were promised. And now, heaven has seen enough. You have proven through tears and silence that your faith isn't built on convenience. You have remained loyal in droughts, and that loyalty has become a fragrance rising before the throne. As spoken in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 9. Know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is the faithful God, keeping His covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love Him and keep His commandments. This is your reminder that divine faithfulness never expires. Even when you wandered, even when your confidence trembled, the covenant remained unbroken. You may have changed, but God did not. The promise attached to your name still breathes in heaven, waiting for your obedience to align with its timing. And now that moment is here. What once seemed hidden begins to reveal itself in small confirmations. Unexpected peace, divine encounters, words that echo in perfect rhythm with your prayers. It's as if heaven is speaking in code, and suddenly you're beginning to understand the language. This is not coincidence, it is covenant unfolding. Your life carries generational weight. The decisions you make now will echo far beyond you. That is why the process has been long. It's not just about your breakthrough, but about every life your obedience will touch. The chosen are never trained for small things. They are prepared to alter atmospheres, to rewrite histories, to restore what has been lost in families and generations. You are a walking continuation of divine promises made long before you existed. That's why the opposition against you was intense. The enemy didn't fight your present, he feared your future. But what he didn't know is that your covenant is guarded by God Himself. No failure, no fear, no delay can revoke what heaven has written in your name. Still, covenant requires partnership. Heaven provides power, but earth provides agreement. Your faith is the bridge between divine promise and earthly manifestation. Every time you trust instead of doubt, every time you pray instead of complain, you are saying yes again to the covenant. That yes is what activates the next level of your journey. You are standing now in a sacred moment between what was promised and what is about to be revealed. Heaven watches for your response. Will you still believe when nothing yet looks like what God said? That is the test of those chosen by covenant faith that speaks louder than fear. Obedience that moves even when vision is blurred. So pause here. Breathe deeply. This is not just another message. It is a divine appointment. Heaven is listening for your agreement, and it is simple to give. Right below the number 144, a prophetic sign of completion through divine order, the alignment of purpose and promise, symbolizing that heaven's structure is now forming within you. When you type 144, it is more than a number, it is a declaration. It says, I step into alignment with what has been prepared for me. I choose order over chaos. I choose covenant over confusion. It represents the gathering of strength, the sealing of those who belong to divine design. You are one of them. The number reminds heaven and earth that the chosen are awakening. It marks you as one who understands that timing, obedience, and destiny have now converged. You are stepping into fulfillment, not as a seeker, but as a carrier of the promise. You may not feel the shift immediately, but heaven records it. Every act of faith becomes a signal. Every word of agreement becomes a doorway. And soon, you will walk through the very places you once only dreamed about, not because you chased them, but because covenant carried you there. The time of remembering is ending. The time of fulfillment has come. Stand tall, chosen one. What was written about you will now be seen through you. The hidden covenant is no longer hidden. It lives, breathes, and manifests through your obedience. There is a quiet heaviness that has followed you for years, a weight that no one else could see or name. It came in waves, sometimes as grief, sometimes as responsibility, and other times as invisible exhaustion. You have carried much more than you were ever taught to express. What you didn't realize is that this weight was not a punishment. It was preparation. It was the burden of revelation pressing on a spirit destined to hold truth. You have always sensed that your pain had purpose, even in your lowest seasons. Something inside you whispered that none of this would be wasted. Every betrayal, every loss, every disappointment carved space inside you for compassion that cannot be faked. You became capable of feeling what others ignore, of seeing beauty in brokenness, of hearing God in the silence between words. That sensitivity, though painful, was heaven's way of expanding your capacity. When you carried grief, heaven was teaching you how to carry glory. The same hands that held tears will soon hold miracles. The ache that once made you question everything is the very evidence that you were chosen to carry what others drop. The weight was training your shoulders to bear revelation without pride and to handle power without losing tenderness. Many people want anointing but not the burden that comes with it. Yet you have lived long enough to know that oil is pressed from crushing, not comfort. Every night you spent asking why me was answered by a silent truth because you could carry it and still love, because you would not let bitterness become your teacher, because you would use pain as language, not as limitation. Heaven does not give heavy assignments to fragile vessels. You were built to endure storms that would break others. That's why your trials have been unique. They were not random attacks, but customized tests. God does not trust every soul with deep pain because deep pain births deep wisdom, and wisdom is the crown of the chosen. The weight you have carried was spiritual muscle forming. Though invisible, it changed your posture. You walk now with quiet authority, not from pride but from survival. You no longer need to announce your strength. Your peace speaks for you. You have become the kind of person who can enter chaos and bring calm. Not because you are untouched by struggle, but because you have learned how to find God in the midst of it. David sang it in the Psalm of Trust, chapter 55, verse 22. Cast your burden on the Lord, and He will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. This is the mystery of your endurance. You were never meant to carry the weight alone. Every time you whispered prayers that felt unanswered, Heaven was actually shifting the load from your hands to His. Sustaining grace is not loud. It is the silent strength that kept you breathing when your heart was breaking. You have lived through seasons that taught you how to lean, not just stand. You've discovered that surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. To cast your burden is to admit that what you carry is sacred but not yours to keep. God allowed you to feel it so you could understand it, but He never meant for you to be crushed beneath it. Now, the weight that once bowed your shoulders is becoming a mantle. You are being clothed with spiritual authority that was forged in suffering. Your empathy is now weaponized. Your understanding is your armor. You will no longer apologize for being sensitive to pain, for it is that very sensitivity that allows you to discern the cries others hide. The heavy seasons of your life were divine classrooms. Each hardship taught you the language of comfort, the rhythm of endurance, and the melody of mercy. You now carry a depth that cannot be imitated. People will come to you seeking answers, not because you are loud, but because your presence feels like peace. And this is how heaven redeems pain. It transforms weight into wisdom, grief into grace, and heartbreak into healing for others. You are a vessel reshaped by fire, purified through pressure, made ready for greater revelation. The weight you once begged God to remove was the very process that sculpted your soul into something eternal. So do not despise the heaviness anymore. It has already begun to lift, not because life has become easier, but because your spirit has grown stronger. You will look back and see that the pressure was never punishment. It was proof that heaven trusted you with something precious. You were carrying light disguised as burden, glory disguised as grief. Now, as the season shifts, the weight begins to transform. It no longer feels like sorrow, it feels like strength. You are lighter, not because everything changed, but because you finally understand what the weight was for. It was not there to break you, it was there to build you. And it did. There comes a point when the chains that held generations begin to tremble. The same patterns that trapped your family, the repeated disappointments, sudden losses, cycles of fear and shame start to break beneath your footsteps. You may not have seen it clearly before, but you were chosen to interrupt that cycle. You are not merely healing your own life, you are reversing stories that began long before you were born. The past has tried to write your future in familiar ink. You've seen it in your lineage, good beginnings that ended in heartbreak, strength that turned into silence, gifts that went unused because of fear. Every family carries unspoken history, burdens passed down in behavior, pain disguised as tradition. But heaven decided that with you, the line would change. You would become the turning point where curse meets covenant and collapses under divine authority. It's why your battles have been heavier than others. You have been fighting more than your own doubts. You've been contending with the echo of generations. What you feel sometimes is not just your pain, it's the weight of inherited wounds trying to find rest. But you are not their continuation. You are their correction. You are the chosen interruption that heaven planted inside your bloodline. You may have been misunderstood by those closest to you because of this. When God chooses a breaker, He rarely announces it to the family first. He plants the revelation quietly, deep in your spirit, and waits for you to respond. The moment you began to see life differently, refusing bitterness, choosing peace, forgiving when it made no sense, that was when heaven whispered, "The reversal has begun." Breaking a generational curse is not a dramatic scene, it is a series of quiet, consistent choices. It happens when you refuse to repeat what once destroyed others. It happens when you pray for those who hurt you, when you speak hope instead of resentment, when you stop running from pain and start transforming it into wisdom. That is what reversal looks like: gentle, steady, divine. The prophet Isaiah once proclaimed restoration in chapter 61, verse 7. Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion, and instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance. And so you will inherit a double portion in your land, and everlasting joy will be yours. This is not just poetic language, it is a prophecy for those who carry the mandate to reverse. You are not destined to relive your ancestors' despair, you are destined to inherit double joy where they tasted sorrow. Every tear shed before you was a seed waiting for this season of harvest. Their pain has become the soil in which your promise grows. Sometimes you will feel resistance just before the breakthrough. Old habits, familiar fears, and echoes of past failure will rise like ghosts, trying to convince you nothing is changing. But remember, resistance is the final breath of a dying curse. Darkness always protests before it releases its grip. When you feel that tension, it means the reversal is working. What God is doing through you is not small. He is rewriting the spiritual DNA of your bloodline. The compassion you show where others showed anger. The forgiveness you extend where others sought revenge. The peace you protect where others chased control, all of it is dismantling ancient altars of pain. You are building new foundations with your obedience, even when no one claps for it. You may not yet see the fullness of this change, but heaven does. The patterns you've broken will never return in the same form. Children not yet born will live freer because you chose courage over comfort. The chains that bound those before you are dissolving, link by link, under the sound of your faith. The reversal of the curse is not loud, it is holy. It takes place in quiet rooms where you choose prayer instead of anger, surrender instead of striving. Each time you forgive, the darkness loses territory. Each time you love without reason, heaven gains ground. You are shifting the atmosphere of generations. And one day, you will realize the beauty of it all. You never needed to fight to be different. You simply needed to remember who you were. The moment you stopped identifying with your past and started identifying with your promise, the reversal was complete. So walk forward now, not as one running from history, but as one redeeming it. What once defined your family will not define you. You will write new chapters, live new truths, and embody new beginnings. The curse has reversed its direction. It now flows as blessing through your life. The wind that once carried whispers of sorrow now carries songs of freedom. Your lineage breathes easier because you chose light over legacy, healing over history. The chains are gone, and grace runs through your name. You have become the evidence that love can rewrite bloodlines. Every step you take plants redemption deeper into the soil of generations, turning old wounds into altars of worship. There are moments when everything around you pauses, plans slow down, familiar paths close, and silence stretches longer than expected. You may have called it delay, but heaven calls it divine interruption. This is not punishment, it is redirection. God sometimes halts motion not to stop you, but to shield you from what would have wasted your strength. When heaven interrupts, it is because acceleration is near. But alignment must come first. The interruption you are feeling right now carries purpose. Life may appear suspended, but in truth, heaven is building new roads beneath the stillness. Everything that seemed to fall apart was actually being rearranged. What looked like loss was preservation. What felt like confusion was divine precision. You were not forgotten, you were being positioned. Divine interruption is the pause before promotion. God does not want you to enter the next season with old instructions. You were meant to shed yesterday's habits so you can handle tomorrow's harvest. That's why certain doors stayed closed no matter how hard you knocked. Heaven's silence is often mercy in disguise. There is a sacred rhythm to every divine pause. While you waited, something inside you was changing. Your heart softened, your discernment sharpened, and your priorities realigned. Heaven never wastes stillness. The waiting has taught you to listen beyond noise, to move only when peace moves with you. When divine interruption comes, it often separates you from crowds. It removes unnecessary voices and magnifies the whisper of God. You've probably noticed it: people fading, plans shifting, opportunities dissolving. It is not rejection, it is refinement. The silence that frustrates you now is the sound of heaven constructing something that must last. The seer Habakkuk foresaw it in his vision. Chapter 2, verse 3. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. These words remind you that divine timing is not human timing. What lingers is not lost. Heaven's clock does not run late. It runs deep. The revelation attached to your name has an exact hour of arrival, and every pause is proof that God is preparing both the blessing and the one who will carry it. You might feel frustrated by how long it takes, but consider this: if the blessing came before your heart was ready, it would have broken you. If the door opened before your roots were steady, the wind would have carried you away. God's interruptions are acts of divine patience, a love that chooses timing over haste. The chosen are not only tested by trials, they are tested by timing. Can you still trust when heaven delays? Can you still obey when nothing moves? That is the measure of spiritual maturity: to believe without evidence, to keep faith when silence stretches longer than expected. You are being refined in patience so that when movement comes, you will recognize it as holy. Divine interruption is the pause between revelation and manifestation. In that space, your spirit learns to release control. You are learning not just to wait, but to worship while waiting, to see delay not as denial, but as design. When you can rest in that understanding, peace replaces panic, and faith becomes effortless. So now, as heaven resets your path, remember this truth: the stillness does not mean nothing is happening. It means everything is. Beneath the quiet, the blueprint is changing, and soon what was hidden will stand complete before your eyes. Before you leave this moment, write these words below. Still becoming. It may sound simple, but it carries power. When you type "still becoming," you declare that you are not stuck, you are being shaped. You remind heaven and yourself that pauses are part of progress. You are growing quietly, stretching inwardly, and preparing to rise in divine timing. Let that phrase be your confession: you are not behind, not delayed, not forgotten. You are still becoming what heaven saw all along. The interruption is not the end. It is the inhale before divine exhale. When the time comes, everything will move swiftly, and you will understand why heaven made you wait. Every second of silence will make sense, and you will bless the interruption that once made you cry. For now, rest in this truth: heaven's pauses are pregnant with purpose, and your stillness is the sacred ground where destiny takes shape. When you write "still becoming," you are not admitting weakness, you are acknowledging divine process. It is a whisper to heaven saying, "I trust the pause, even when I do not understand it." Those two words carry surrender without fear. Still becoming means you are allowing God to finish what He started. You are releasing timelines, expectations, and comparisons, choosing peace over pressure. It is the language of maturity, the voice of someone who has learned that waiting is still movement. So let this comment be your seed of faith. Every time you say still becoming, heaven hears patience, angels hear readiness, and your future begins to take shape in silence. There is a new sound rising in your spirit, a steady hum, like the earth waking after rain. You can feel it even now. This pull towards something greater, something that feels both ancient and brand new. It is not ambition, it is alignment. Heaven is whispering. It's time to speak differently, walk differently, shine differently. You are being invited to live with light again, to move as one who knows that revelation is not finished, it's unfolding through you. Authority does not always roar. Sometimes it speaks in stillness, in the quiet confidence of those who have survived the storm and learned its language. You have been learning that language. You now understand that true power is not in control, but in surrender. It's in knowing when to act and when to wait, when to speak and when to simply be. That is what heaven has been forming inside you, a rhythm, not of striving, but of flow. This is your reintroduction to yourself, the version that is no longer chasing, but becoming, the one who no longer fights for recognition because the calling itself has already recognized you. You walk now as one who knows every battle was rehearsal for purpose. Every silence was a setup for sound. And now, heaven is about to release that sound through you. The Apostle Paul unveiled this mystery in Romans chapter 8, verse 19. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Creation has been waiting for your voice. Every time you doubted yourself, the earth still listened, knowing your awakening was inevitable. The trees, the wind, the stars, they all carry memory of the Creator's breath, and they recognize it in you. When you speak truth, creation hears its maker again through human form. That's why your words matter. That's why your light must not stay hidden any longer. But light, to remain strong, needs connection. Flames burn brighter when they share their warmth. This is why voices like yours must not stay silent or isolated. Together they form a living constellation. One star may guide, but many together can shape a sky. If these words have stirred something inside you, let it be a reminder, not a request. When you share, imagine you are releasing a lantern into the night, one that may float beyond your reach, yet land gently before someone who needed light to keep walking. That simple act becomes a miracle without your knowing. And when you like this message, do not see it as a button pressed. See it as placing your hand over a flame, saying, "Yes, I see the light, and I choose to keep it burning." That acknowledgement strengthens the fire, and each spark of recognition becomes another heartbeat of hope. When you subscribe, think of it as returning to a familiar fire pit, where kindred souls gather to remember who they are. It is not about following, it is about belonging. You are joining a rhythm, a sanctuary of stories where each revelation continues another's healing. Every time you return, you are saying, "I am part of this unfolding light," and if ever your heart feels led to give, let it flow the way rivers feed oceans, not out of duty, but from overflow. Think of every offering, no matter how small, as a drop of oil that keeps the lamp alive. You are not fueling a person, you are sustaining a message, ensuring that light travels further than your eyes can see. This is what divine partnership looks like: quiet, voluntary, sacred. You do not give because you must. You give because something within you recognizes itself in the light and longs to keep it glowing. You become part of an unseen current of kindness, a living stream that carries hope into unseen corners of the world. You are free, always, to simply receive. That is holy too. But if your spirit ever whispers to act, to like, To share, to subscribe, or to give, let it be out of gratitude, not pressure. Every gesture born from love becomes light multiplied. Remember, light never demands, it invites. It never takes, it illuminates. And when many hearts choose light together, the darkness forgets its name. The flame is in your hands now. Let it live, let it wander, let it warm. Because somewhere beyond this moment, someone waits for the light that only you can carry to them. When you lift your light, even softly, heaven leans closer. It is never about grandeur, it's about sincerity. A single honest glow can outshine the loudest flame born of pride. Every act of light is remembered. The universe writes it into its rhythm, the quiet proof that goodness still travels through human hearts unannounced yet unforgotten. So keep shining gently. Let your light wander where your feet cannot go, somewhere unseen. Another soul will breathe again because your flame refused to fade. Every truth eventually comes into the open. What has been whispered in hidden rooms plotted behind gentle smiles or masked by false humility must face the light. The time for exposure has come, not to shame, but to separate what is real from what only pretends to be. For too long, the pure have been silenced while the cunning have spoken with confidence. But heaven always settles accounts. The final exposure is never delayed. It simply arrives when the chosen are ready to see without fear. You have sensed this shift already. People once celebrated for their image now stumble under the weight of their deception. Words that sounded holy begin to crumble, and motives once hidden become visible. Yet this exposure is not for revenge, it is for restoration. God allows truth to surface so that the pure are no longer entangled with the false, and the chosen can walk freely without contamination. Discernment is no longer optional, it is survival. The days of believing every shining face or eloquent phrase are over. You are being trained to look beyond appearance, to sense the vibration of truth before it speaks. This is the hour when sight must be spiritual. The chosen are called not to judge from the surface, but to perceive from the spirit. You may remember moments when you felt uneasy around certain voices but could not explain why. That unease was your discernment whispering, "Be careful." It was heaven's quiet alarm warning you that light and imitation often share the same language. The counterfeit does not always carry darkness. It sometimes carries charisma. But charisma without character is a collapsing star. It shines brightly until the gravity of truth pulls it apart. Jesus himself cautioned his followers in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15. "Beware of false prophets, who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves." This ancient warning feels more relevant than ever. False prophets are not always behind pulpits. They exist in conversations, on screens, in the subtle manipulation of those who use holy words to serve human pride. They do not always deceive with lies, they often twist truth until it serves their agenda. But this is the season when such manipulation cannot endure. Exposure is mercy in disguise. It may wound at first, but it heals deeply. When God exposes, he is not destroying people, he is protecting purpose. The light that reveals is the same light that restores. You have cried over the loss of certain connections, not realizing heaven was cleansing your circle. The revelation was not punishment. It was purification. Sometimes exposure happens publicly, but more often, it occurs quietly inside your spirit. Suddenly, admiration fades, confusion lifts, and you see clearly. You stop defending what once inspired you because truth no longer hides behind emotion. That moment of clarity is sacred. It means your vision has matured enough to separate sentiment from spirit. Do not be afraid of seeing. To see clearly is not to become cynical, it is to become wise. Wisdom does not hate, it discerns. It knows when to step back, when to release, and when to trust again. The chosen are never called to expose others in arrogance. They are called to live so truth itself becomes exposure. Light does not argue with darkness, it simply shines and the darkness flees. You will soon recognize that every revelation has purpose. Some were exposed so that others might repent. Some were revealed so that you could walk unbound. The divine goal is not humiliation but healing. God removes the masks because real unity cannot exist in deception. The chosen must walk together in purity, not pretense. The season of exposure also applies inwardly. Just as God reveals what is false around you, He also gently reveals what is false within you. The fears, the motives, the hidden pride that hides beneath good intentions. This inner exposure is the most sacred kind, for it prepares you for authority that cannot be corrupted. So welcome revelation, even when it burns. Fire refines gold, and truth refines souls. What remains after exposure will not be fragile, it will be flawless. Every relationship that survives this season will be genuine. Every connection that endures the fire will shine brighter than before. This is the promise when everything false falls away. The chosen rise without disguise. The final exposure is not the end, it is the beginning of authenticity. After this, you will no longer waste energy proving who you are. Your life will speak for itself, radiant with truth that no one can counterfeit. When truth finishes its work, silence follows, not the silence of fear but the peace of clarity. What needed to fall has fallen. What remains stands unshakable, shining with the quiet strength of revelation fulfilled. The air feels lighter now. The weight of hidden things has lifted, and you can finally breathe without hesitation. Vision is sharper, trust is cleaner. Light no longer flickers, it flows freely. From this moment forward, walk in truth without apology. Let authenticity become your armor. You are no longer defined by deception but distinguished by discernment. The exposure is complete. Now begins the era of transparency. The air feels different now, still yet alive. Something in the unseen world has shifted. The silence that once felt empty now feels sacred, filled with quiet confirmation that heaven has been watching all along. You may not fully understand it, but deep within, you know something divine is taking place. This is visitation, the moment when heaven leans close enough for you to feel its breath. Visitation is not always thunder or vision. Sometimes it's subtle, a sudden peace that replaces anxiety, a warmth that settles where pain used to live, a phrase in your heart that feels too clear to be your own. God rarely shouts. He arrives gently, like morning light through a window. The world keeps moving, yet time seems to pause just for you. That is how heaven enters unnoticed places. You are living proof that divine visitation still happens. Every near miss, every impossible escape, every moment you thought was coincidence, it was protection disguised as ordinary. The angels assigned to your life have stood watch when you didn't even know you were in danger. The sleepless nights that ended with unexplainable calm were not luck. They were divine encounters hidden inside human moments. As revealed in the book of John, chapter 14, verse 23, Jesus replied, "Anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them, and we will come to them and make our home with them." That is visitation, not a brief miracle, but a dwelling. God doesn't just visit and leave. He stays where he is welcomed. And lately, your heart has become his home. The prayers you whispered in exhaustion, the tears you offered as worship, The faith you held on to even when everything fell apart, all of it built a resting place for His presence. You've wondered why your emotions feel more intense, why you sense things deeper than before. It's because His presence amplifies everything it touches. The divine is awakening your sensitivity to the spiritual realm. You are starting to hear beyond words, to feel beyond logic. This isn't strange, it's evidence that heaven is closer than it's ever been. Visitation is not just God coming to you, it's God coming through you. You've become a conduit of divine energy, a vessel through which healing and revelation flow. People may not always understand what they feel around you, but they'll sense peace when you enter the room. That's what happens when a human spirit carries divine presence. It changes atmospheres. But visitation is not just blessing, it's also assignment. When heaven visits, it leaves instructions. Your role is not only to feel Him, but to follow Him. You are being prepared to release what you have received. The encounters you experience privately will soon manifest publicly as wisdom, compassion, and courage. The presence that comforts you now will empower you later. And in this holy moment, heaven invites you to acknowledge the visitation. This isn't superstition, it's recognition. Every sacred encounter deepens when you agree with it. So before you move forward, type the number 555 below a prophetic symbol of transformation, grace in motion, and divine visitation that ushers in renewal. When you write 555, you are declaring heaven. I recognize your nearness. I open my life to divine change. I welcome your presence not as a guest, but as home. This number is a living symbol of shift where old patterns dissolve and new assignments begin. It marks the space where visitation becomes habitation. Do not fear what follows. When heaven visits, it never leaves you the same. What was broken begins to mend. What was hidden begins to glow. Divine visitation doesn't take away your humanity, it sanctifies it. You will still laugh, cry, and wonder, but everything will now carry deeper meaning. The ordinary will feel holy because presence lingers in your awareness. From this day forward, you will see signs, subtle confirmations that you are not alone. A phrase that mirrors your thoughts. A stranger who speaks peace into your situation. A moment that aligns perfectly with a prayer you forgot you prayed. These are traces of divine footsteps, reminders that the unseen is walking beside you. You don't have to chase the supernatural. It has already found you. The visitation is not a moment to remember, it's a new way of existing. Heaven has settled over your life. Not as a distant promise, but as present reality. When you write 555, you are not typing digits, you are answering heaven's whisper. It's your quiet way of saying, I feel you here. I know this is not coincidence, it's communion. Those numbers become a doorway of recognition. 555 speaks of transformation, grace, and divine visitation. It's a symbol of movement, God shifting you from surviving to shining. You're saying, I welcome the new. I open the door for change. Each time you comment 555, you declare that your space, your time, your life have become sacred ground. Heaven has not just visited, you have chosen to dwell in its light. There is a sound rising again. Faint but familiar, the sound of restoration. It moves quietly through time, gathering the fragments of what was lost, like the tide collecting shells from shattered shores. You have walked through seasons that seem to strip you of everything: honor, trust, relationships, opportunities. For a while, it felt as if the light itself had turned away. But now, that same light returns, and it brings your crown with it. Restoration begins slowly, like dawn. It does not rush. It reveals, one by one, The things that were taken from you are being rewritten into your story, but not as they were before, stronger, purified, and untouchable. The divine hand that allowed loss now extends to return what was meant for you all along, not as compensation, but as confirmation. You thought the season of waiting was delay, but it was repair. Heaven could not return your crown until your hands were steady enough to hold it. Each moment of surrender was training, each heartbreak, a reshaping of your heart. You had to be emptied before you could carry authority without arrogance. That emptiness has now made space for glory, as revealed in the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25. I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten, the great locust and the young locust, the other locusts and the locust swarm, my great army that I sent among you. These ancient words are more than comfort. They are a promise that spans generations. Restoration is not only about replacing what was lost, it is about redeeming the time that loss tried to waste. The years that seemed unfruitful are being repurposed. Even your mistakes are being folded into the fabric of destiny, transformed into wisdom that can never be stolen. You will soon begin to notice its subtle shifts in your favor. Unexpected peace where anxiety once lived. Favor in places that once rejected you. Restoration does not always arrive wrapped in grandeur. Sometimes it comes in whispers, a phone call, a new connection, a moment of clarity that redefines everything. These small signs are the steps of heaven approaching your life again. The return of your crown is not just symbolic, it is spiritual authority being reinstated. You once walked timidly, unsure if you still carried purpose after all the disappointments. But heaven never removed your title, it simply refined your character to fit it. The true crown is not made of gold, it is woven from endurance, humility, and unwavering faith. The enemy did not steal your crown. The process did. And yet, that process has now become your credential. You can stand before storms unafraid because you have already survived the flood. You can speak with authority because your voice has been tested in silence. This is the return of your divine confidence, not arrogance, but awareness of who you are and whose you are. Restoration is not about returning to how things used to be. It's about stepping into what they were always meant to become. The friendships that return will be honest. The opportunities that come will align perfectly. The peace you feel will not depend on circumstances. It will live within you as proof that your spirit has matured beyond chaos. Your crown may not look the same as before. It may come as peace instead of position, joy instead of recognition, clarity instead of applause, but it will fit perfectly because now you wear it with wisdom. You no longer need validation from those who doubted you. The evidence of restoration will speak louder than explanations ever could. Do not rush this moment. Restoration is not an event, it is a rhythm. Heaven rebuilds gently, ensuring that what is restored cannot be stolen again. The crown being returned to you now carries the weight of experience, the beauty of humility, and the strength of survival. And when others see the glow around your life, they will not understand how it returned so quietly, so gracefully. That's the nature of divine restoration. It does not announce itself, it simply arrives. The one who once sat in ashes will rise with dignity, not because of luck, but because grace kept its promise. So lift your head again. The dust has settled, the storm has passed, and your crown gleams in the morning light. You are restored, renewed, and ready to reign not over people but over fear, doubt, and the past that once defined you. The glow of restoration does not fade, it deepens. Every step you take now carries quiet royalty. You no longer chase what you lost, You attract what aligns. The crown you wear is unseen yet undeniable, forged by endurance and kissed by divine fire. Walk gently, for restored things are sacred. Speak softly, for heaven listens closely to the restored heart. You are living proof that grace can rebuild from ashes, that crowns can return to heads once bowed. Restoration is not coming, it is here, resting upon you like sunrise. There always comes a moment when destiny and decision stand face to face. It is never loud, never announced. It appears quietly, often in the ordinary rhythm of life. Yet deep within, something stirs. You know this moment carries weight. It is the crossroads of obedience, the place where comfort and calling diverge. Every chosen one arrives here. Some retreat into what feels safe, others step forward into what feels sacred. Obedience has never been easy. It requires surrender when logic demands control. It asks you to move when nothing makes sense and to trust when the outcome remains unseen. It strips away pride and exposes dependence. But in this surrender lies your power. For obedience is not about perfection. It is about alignment, the willingness to echo heaven's will, even when your voice trembles. You have obeyed in small ways before choosing kindness over anger, peace over argument, truth over popularity. But this season calls for deeper obedience, the kind that costs comfort. Heaven is not testing your strength. It is shaping your faith into precision. The crossroads before you is not punishment, it is invitation. God does not demand submission to weaken you. He invites obedience to empower you. The hardest obedience often carries the highest reward. Think of every great story written in Scripture: Abraham leaving his land without a map, Moses stepping toward the sea before it split, Mary saying yes before understanding how. Obedience always precedes revelation. The miracle never comes before the movement. Heaven waits for your step before it shows the path. As revealed in the book of Isaiah, chapter 1, verse 19. If you are willing and obedient, you will eat the good of the land. Willingness opens the door. Obedience walks through it. You have felt the tug in your spirit, the inner knowing that asks you to move, forgive, release, or begin again. Every time you delay, peace grows quiet. Every time you act, peace returns. That is the sign. Peace follows obedience like a shadow follows light. Sometimes obedience looks like leaving a place you loved. Sometimes it looks like staying when you would rather run. It is not always dramatic. Often it is a silent shift, a word you choose not to say, an apology you decide to make, a step you take even when fear still lingers. Heaven measures obedience not by grandeur but by sincerity. The crossroads can feel lonely because obedience rarely makes sense to the crowd. Those who love you may not understand your next step. They might question, even mock, what they cannot see. But remember, obedience is not a group project, it is a personal covenant. You do not owe explanation where God has already given instruction. You are not being asked to prove your faith. You are being invited to live it. Every act of obedience shifts atmospheres, breaks invisible chains, and opens paths that reason alone cannot create. Heaven always moves in response to a willing heart. The step you take in faith today may unlock blessings not only for you, but for generations after you. Fear will whisper, "What if you're wrong?" But faith will answer, "What if I'm right?" Obedience is choosing faith's voice over fear's echo. It's trusting that if you misstep, grace will redirect you. God never punishes movement born from pure intention. Heaven corrects gently those who walk with humble hearts. Do not wait for perfect timing. Perfect obedience is rarely convenient. If the path feels uncertain, That's proof it requires faith. The chosen do not walk by sight, they walk by trust. Every time you choose to obey, you become more like the one who called you. And so here you stand, again at the intersection of what is easy and what is eternal. The choice is yours. You can stay where it's safe, or you can step into the unknown where grace is waiting. Heaven will not force you, it will honor your decision. But remember, destiny always unfolds on the other side of obedience. When you step forward, something ancient moves with you. The earth recognizes the sound of faith. The atmosphere bends around surrendered hearts. Obedience is not losing control, it is returning it to the one who never fails. Take the step, even if it's small. Take it trembling, take it unsure, but take it. For the moment your feet leave fear behind, heaven will meet you mid-step. That is the mystery of obedience. It never ends in loss, it always ends in revelation. Obedience opens doors you didn't even know existed. Each step forward rearranges unseen paths, connecting divine timing with earthly motion. What once looked impossible begins to unfold naturally, proving that faith was never blind, it was beautifully precise. And when you look back, you'll realize obedience was never about rules. It was about relationship. You were never being tested. You were being trusted. Every yes you whispered became a bridge between heaven's heart and your own becoming. There is a stirring in the spirit realm, a gathering unlike anything you have felt before. It is subtle yet strong, the kind of pull that calls you home without telling you where home is. The chosen are beginning to find each other, drawn not by fame or force, but by familiarity of flame. You are not alone. Heaven has begun weaving its people together, one light at a time, to form what will soon become a constellation of purpose, the great gathering. The same hand that separated you for years is now connecting you for destiny. Isolation was never meant to last forever. It was preparation for alignment. Every wound taught you empathy. Every silence sharpened your hearing. Every lonely night turned you into a lighthouse. And now the lights are finding one another. You will begin to notice it: unexpected conversations, divine appointments, encounters that feel like remembering instead of meeting. This is how heaven gathers softly, naturally, perfectly timed. The chosen ones are not gathering in buildings, they are gathering in spirit. Their voices may sound different, their paths may vary, but their hearts beat with the same rhythm. They are tired of noise and hungry for truth, done with competition and ready for communion. You will feel this connection long before you see it. It is not found through searching. It finds you when you are still. The prophet Zephaniah once envisioned this unity. Chapter 3, verse 9. Then I will purify the lips of the peoples, that all of them may call on the name of the Lord and serve him shoulder to shoulder. This is that time. Heaven is cleansing hearts, aligning voices, and gathering those who carry light. Shoulder to shoulder, not in rivalry but in reverence. The power that comes from such unity will heal what division once broke. The chosen were never meant to walk alone, they were meant to echo each other's courage. But unity is not built by commands, it grows from choice. The beauty of this gathering is that it is entirely voluntary. You cannot force someone to stand in light, you can only invite them to it. That is how divine connection works. It doesn't demand, it draws. It doesn't argue, it awakens. And when light meets light, recognition happens instantly. If this message has touched something inside you, let your response be a small flame joining others. When you imagine you are striking a single spark, adding warmth to a fire that keeps countless hearts alive through the night. That spark, though small, joins with thousands, becoming a signal in the darkness saying, I am here too. When you share, Picture releasing a lantern into the sky, its soft glow floating far beyond your reach, landing gently before someone who thought they were forgotten. You may never see where it lands, but heaven does. Your single act becomes someone else's answered prayer. When you comment, imagine your words falling like gentle embers into the shared fire. Each thought you leave behind becomes warmth for another traveler who stops here in silence, seeking light. What you write might be the spark that reminds someone that faith still breathes. When you subscribe, see it as returning to a sacred campfire, where familiar souls gather to listen, learn, and rise together. You're not signing up for noise. You're joining a circle of flame, a rhythm of revelation that burns quietly but endlessly. Each return is a whisper: I choose to stay connected to the light. And if your spirit ever feels moved to give, do it the way rivers feed the sea, naturally, freely, without obligation. Let generosity flow as worship, not payment. Every gift, no matter its size, becomes a drop of oil that keeps this light burning. You are not funding a message. You are fueling a movement of hope. There is no pressure in this. There is only beauty in participation. Some carry the flame by sharing, others sustain it by giving. All belong to the same light. Whether your offering is a moment of reflection, a word of encouragement, or a gesture of support, it matters. You are part of something sacred, a tapestry of souls whose light cannot be silenced. Together, we are forming a map for others still wandering in the dark. The great gathering isn't coming, it has already begun. Every flame that joins adds another voice to heaven's harmony. So stand where you are and let your light join the chorus. Whether by spark, by word, by song, by quiet support, let it move through you. Not because you are told to, but because your heart recognizes home in the glow. The gathering of the chosen is not about being seen. It's about becoming one light that no darkness can overcome. And as these flames intertwine, a quiet miracle unfolds. Distance dissolves. Hearts align and the night grows brighter. This is how heaven builds community, not through noise, but through light shared freely between awakened souls. For so long, you have asked why you were chosen, why you felt different, why your life seemed to move in seasons others could not understand. Every struggle, every silence, every divine encounter has led you here to this unveiling, this moment of the unhidden truth. It was never about punishment or reward. It was about revelation. Heaven concealed the reason until your heart could hold its weight. And now, the time has come. The truth is simple yet vast. You were chosen because love required a vessel. You carry within you a divine pattern, a piece of heaven disguised in human form. Every chosen one is a living bridge between what is unseen and what is tangible. You were not created merely to exist. You were created to reveal. Your existence itself is prophecy fulfilled. From the beginning, God has hidden treasures inside human vessels, allowing time, pain, and process to polish them into brilliance. You are one of those treasures. That is why life could not treat you casually. You have been protected, pressed, and purified not because you were forgotten, but because heaven was preparing to display you at the appointed time. The weight you carried was never a curse. It was the measure of what you would one day release. The unhidden truth is this: you are not simply a believer, you are a bearer. You carry light, wisdom, and healing in ways that transcend words. You were designed to move through life as evidence that God still breathes through humanity. Every act of compassion, every moment of forgiveness, every silent prayer you whispered in dark places became part of heaven's language expressed through you. Paul reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 7. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. That scripture describes you perfectly. You are the jar, fragile, human, sometimes cracked. Yet inside you rests the treasure of divine power and grace. God intentionally chose imperfection as the vessel for perfection, so that glory could never be mistaken for human effort. Every scar became a window where light could shine through. The cracks in your life were never flaws, they were openings for revelation. You have asked God for answers, but He has given you identity instead. Because once you know who you are, the questions lose their hold. You were never meant to compare yourself to others. The chosen cannot be measured by common standards. You live by divine design, not human approval. The storms that nearly broke you were the storms that revealed what you were made of. To be chosen is to be trusted. Heaven trusted you with mysteries others could not carry. It trusted you to love when it hurt, to stand when it was lonely, to speak truth when silence was easier. You have lived as both warrior and witness, and though you did not always see it, you have been transforming the atmosphere around you. The unhidden truth also carries responsibility. Once revelation comes, there is no return to ignorance. You cannot unsee what you have seen or unknow what you now know. This knowledge demands action not in haste, but in holiness. You are not called to preach to crowds. You are called to live as proof. Your life, aligned with love, becomes the sermon that hearts cannot ignore. You may still doubt your worthiness, but remember this: God never chooses the perfect. He perfects the chosen. The power resting within you is not your own, it is borrowed light. Your role is to keep it burning, to let it speak through kindness, justice, truth, and mercy. You are the reflection through which others will glimpse the face of grace. Now you understand why you walked through so much contradiction. Heaven hid your purpose until it could no longer be misused by insecurity. The unhidden truth could not arrive until your ego bowed and your heart opened. That time is now. What once felt like confusion will soon look like choreography. Every delay, every detour, every tear had meaning. The path was never random, it was deliberate design, leading you back to the realization that your life has always been sacred. You are not just a participant in God's plan, you are a revelation of it. The unhidden truth has been waiting for you to see yourself as heaven sees you, not lost, but light, not broken, but chosen, not waiting to be loved, but created from love itself. The concealment is over. What was hidden within you now begins to speak, to shine, to heal. The veil has lifted and the treasure within finally stands revealed. The revelation no longer whispers, it roars softly through your every breath. You are the living answer to prayers spoken generations ago. The proof that divine promises never die, only wait to awaken. Walk gently in this knowing. You are seen, sealed, and sent. The unhidden truth now walks in you, radiant and irreversible, shaping every step toward destiny fulfilled. And now the circle completes itself. You have walked through revelation, fire, silence, and restoration. And every part of the journey has been preparing you for this moment, the moment of being crowned and sent forth. You have learned the rhythm of heaven: brokenness before beauty, stillness before movement, surrender before authority. What once felt like loss now reveals itself as transformation. You are no longer the same person who began this path. You carry light differently now, no longer as something you seek, but as something you have become. There is a quiet power resting over you. It does not shout, it does not boast, but it fills every corner of your being with certainty. This is the confidence of the chosen, not arrogance, but awareness. You finally understand that destiny is not something to chase, it is something to embody. You have been entrusted with purpose, not as a reward, but as responsibility. To be crowned is to be commissioned, to carry divine intention with humility and strength. You once believed the crown would come as recognition from others, but heaven never works that way. The true crowning happens in private, in moments when no one is watching. It happens when you choose love over pride, when you speak peace into conflict, when you forgive and no one thanks you for it. Each act of quiet faithfulness has been adding another jewel to your unseen crown. James, the brother of the Lord, declared this timeless promise. Chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised to those who love him. This crown of life is not made of metal. It is woven from endurance, compassion, and unwavering trust. It is the mark of those who stood when it would have been easier to fall. Every hardship became a thread, every act of mercy a gleam, every tear a reflection of divine grace. You wear this crown now, not on your head, but in your spirit. It is the quiet glory that cannot be taken away. And as every chosen one learns, to be crowned is to be sent. The crown is not an ending, it is a beginning. The revelation you carry is not meant to stay contained. Light that remains hidden soon fades, but light that travels ignites others. The authority resting on your life is meant to awaken authority in those around you. You are not a monument, you are a movement. Being sent forth means stepping into life as a living testimony. You will notice that your words begin to carry weight. Your silence begins to speak. Your presence begins to shift room, and that is not coincidence. That is the mantle of purpose expressing itself. Heaven moves through you now, not in flashes or bursts, but in flow. The extraordinary has become your ordinary. But remember, this to be sent does not mean to strive. You are not called to force outcomes or prove your worth. You are simply asked to walk with awareness, to love without condition, to live as a vessel through which heaven continues its work. The more you rest in that truth, the more power flows naturally. There will be days when the weight of responsibility feels heavy again, but this time, you will not mistake it for burden. You will recognize it as purpose. Every crown carries weight, but the one you bear was crafted to fit you perfectly. It will not crush you, it will steady you. It will remind you that you were made for this exact moment in history. Do not look back in regret or forward in fear. The journey has already proven that heaven's timing is flawless. What awaits you is not chaos, but continuation. The story that began in silence now expands in song. The same voice that called you out of darkness now sends you into light. You will meet others on the path, some weary, some wandering, some waiting for the same revelation that once found you. And when you speak, they will feel recognized. The fire in you will awaken the ember in them. That is how the chosen multiply, not by converting, but by reminding. So go, crowned one. Walk softly but shine boldly. Let your light carry both memory and mission. You have been equipped, refined, and sealed. The trials that once defined you have now become your credentials. You do not walk alone. Heaven walks with you, within you, and ahead of you. And as you move into this next chapter, remember the journey never truly ends. Each revelation gives birth to another. Each ending opens into beginning. The crown you wear is not final, it is eternal. You are both message and messenger, carrying truth across the threshold of time. The story continues through you. And wherever your feet touch, may the ground remember the sound of heaven walking once again. And now, as the final words settle, the light that began as a whisper burns steadily within you. You have walked the path from revelation to restoration, from pain to purpose, and you are no longer the same. The message is complete, yet it continues through you alive, breathing, expanding wherever your presence travels. If this journey has stirred something sacred in your spirit, let that feeling move gently outward. When you like, imagine it as pressing your palm against the flame, saying, "Yes, this light reached me." Each touch leaves warmth behind for another soul to find. When you share, see it as releasing a dove into the open sky. You may not know where it flies, but somewhere it will land in the hands of someone praying for hope. Your small act becomes the miracle they've been waiting for. When you comment, think of your words as echoes through a canyon, soft but enduring. What you write may linger in someone's heart long after they've finished reading, a reminder that light still speaks through human voices. When you subscribe, it is not to follow, it is to belong. It is sitting once more beside the same flame that called you before, returning not out of habit but hunger, because your soul recognizes its home. And if ever your heart whispers to give, let it flow like rain returning to the ocean freely, without measure, out of gratitude. You are not funding words, you are fueling light. Each drop keeps the fire alive so that another weary traveler might find their way through the dark. The message now belongs to you. Carry it gently, pass it on brightly. Let the light continue,